The situation in Congress is chaotic, to say the least, as Democrats juggle a bipartisan infrastructure bill, Biden's Build Back Better bill, Republicans who refuse to increase the debt ceiling, and impending government shutdown. The White House is telling government agencies to prepare to indeed shut down, starting on October 1st. That's just a little over a week from tonight. Now, while there's still a chance that Democrats could pass a resolution to keep the government open, there's currently no agreement on avoiding an unprecedented default on our debt. Meanwhile, there's been some progress on the infrastructure bills. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Speaker Nancy Pelosi say they've come to an agreement on a, quote, framework for how to pay for reconciliation, but they haven't finalized a price tag or what policies stay in the bill. This comes after Biden met with Democrats yesterday, with Senator Joe Manchin saying that the president asked him to come back with a concrete dollar figure that he could support. Let's just be clear. This isn't about dollars. It's about policies, which in the end are about values, as Speaker Pelosi said earlier today. We, the public, deserve to know what these senators, from whatever camp they're in, actually value. Well, Manchin made sure to note to reporters that he has big problems with the climate provisions in the bill. So, values. Indeed, we've spent a lot of time on this show on Joe Manchin's ties to big oil and big pharma and pretty much all of the groups who do not want this bill. But we tend to not spend as much time on Kyrsten Sinema, who, like Manchin, has come out against the bill's drug price reforms. These are reforms that, checks notes, 88% of the country supports. So why would a sitting senator, a Democratic senator, be against this? Well, what does Senator Sinema value? Oh, right, money. Kyrsten Sinema, who Kaiser Health News once called a pharma favorite, has received more than $500,000 from the pharmaceutical industry throughout her career. According to a liberal nonprofit group, she's received a total of $923,000 from the industry groups leading the charge against the bill, which includes that money from Big Pharma. And The Intercept reports that a dark money group, No Labels, is already celebrating her for derailing the reconciliation bill by decoupling it from the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which has stuff in it that they actually want. I'm joined now by NBC national political reporter Sahil Kapoor on Capitol Hill. So take us inside these behind-the-scenes negotiations and what these, particularly the moderate senators, are claiming they want. Because all we're hearing is no, no, no. Have they started to talk about what it is that they want in the bills?
Joy, there is certainly pressure on these centrist Democrats to come up with a dollar figure that they're for and to start narrowing down in terms of policies, communicating what they are willing to support. That was President Biden's message to Senator Manchin. That is something that a number of Democrats that I've spoken to, senators and aides, are a little confused in terms of what Senator Manchin is ultimately willing to support. Now, according to my sources, Senator Sinema has communicated privately to committee chairs and to leadership some of what she opposes, some of what she supports. She has not been public about this, so there is some confusion, at least, as to where she stands. She said she's opposed to the $3.5 trillion figure. What is she willing to support? At the end of the day, Joy, this is the reason that progressives in the House are holding this infrastructure bill up, because those two, Manchin and Sinema, have a lot invested in that. They co-wrote it. It will validate their view of bipartisanship in the Senate. They can go home and brag about that. Progressives don't want that infrastructure bill to pass until reconciliation passes, because they are worried that those two in particular would have no use for reconciliation if the infrastructure bill were done and signed into law. Now, centrist Democrats in the House and the Senate, their aides will swear up and down that they have no intention of killing reconciliation, that they absolutely do want this to pass. There are provisions in that, like the child tax credit, for instance, that everyone supports, but progressives don't trust them, and that's where things are right now.
Very quickly, just to follow up with you on one thing. Is the fight about the dollar figures or about policies in the bill? Because if it's just about dollars and cents, that doesn't even feel like a morally relevant fight. Is it about the money and the price tag or about policies in the bill?
It is absolutely about both. Now, the dollar figure and the price tag is more about political positioning. $3.5 trillion was the agreement that, or at least I guess the handshake agreement that progressives and moderates came to, but some of the centrists say that's a bit much. There are concerns about that spending. They want it to go lower. But there are policy fights too. There are real differences of opinion, particularly around the prescription drug issue. You just alluded to that. Differences of opinion between Democratic senators and House Democrats as well in terms of where to go on that. At the end of the day, Democrats' hopes of surviving an onslaught in the 2022 election, Joy, is going to depend on what happens with this bill. This is the last major train leaving the station on President Biden's economic agenda. Everything after this is going to have to go through a filibuster, which means it'll likely need Mitch McConnell's support. So this is kind of a do-or-die moment for Democrats to get something major that they can try to campaign on.
Yeah, so Sahil Kapoor, great job. Thank you very much. Really appreciate your reporting. Okay, let's bring in New York Democratic Congressman Mondaire Jones. He is a member of the House Judiciary Committee. So let's go through this piece by piece, Congressman. Starting with this idea of the price tag, because, you know, money in politics is simply a statement of our values, right? I mean, when the government wants to, they can throw trillions of dollars at the airline industry or whatever industry they want, at the banks. They've got the money, and they're a very wealthy country. So are you hearing anything from what moderates are saying that speaks to what their values are, what policies they support, or are they just talking money?
Well, Joy, it's great to be with you. And I think you've really sort of pinpointed the challenge here. I mean, we want to hear from our conservative Democratic colleagues because these are not moderates. Let's be clear. The vast majority, nearly all of House Democrats are in support of this president's broadly supported economic agenda. It is an agenda for the people, as House Democrats say. There's a reason why you only hear a handful of names. So these folks are not moderates. I would never malign my moderate colleagues who similarly want to see universal child care in the way that I do. We just sent a letter that I led, signed by 106 people, to Pelosi and to Schumer. 106 members signed this letter, including, frankly, Josh Gottheimer and Henry Cuellar, saying we need to keep the universal child care provisions that we passed out of the House Education and Labor Committee in the final reconciliation bill. So we can do this thing, but we need more information from our colleagues who are raising concerns, hypothetical concerns, without addressing the substance of whatever their critique may be.
Let me play some of your fellow progressives talking about, as you said, maybe you don't call them moderates, but whoever they are, holding the whole caucus hostage. Take a look.
The real problem we have in Washington is it's big pharma and the special interests that don't want to have to pay for this.
And what we are running into is enormous opposition from the drug companies because they don't want to have us lower the cost of prescription drugs. The healthcare industry surely does not want us to expand Medicare to cover dental, eyeglasses, and hearing aids.
We are currently being held hostage by conservative Democrats who are doing the bidding of, you know, big pharma, big oil, and Wall Street.
I think this is what concerns folks who are watching this bill. Because it doesn't matter if it was a $3 trillion bill or a $20 trillion bill. The point is, who doesn't want it? And Kirsten Sinema has taken a lot of money from Chamber of Commerce type groups, big pharma. She even got an internship, an $1,100 internship at a winery whose owner just happens to be the co-founder of TPG Capital, one of the largest private equity firms in the world, which spent more than $3 million lobbying lawmakers over the past few years. You've got pharma launching 7-figure ad campaigns to try to stop this bill. Going on TV. I see these ads even on MSNBC. Everything they can to stop this bill. At this point, are you concerned that it isn't even these, whatever they are, moderates, conservative, Democrats, but it's really big pharma, the Chamber of Commerce, big oil that Joe Manchin loves so much and doesn't really want to do climate change stuff? Is that who's really directing the opposition to this bill?
Joy, I think we are seeing the worst of what Americans believe about Congress play out in this moment. When you see people opposing simply the ability of Medicare, the federal government, to negotiate down the price of prescription drugs, something that is supported overwhelmingly by both Democrats and Republicans, it's clear then that people aren't playing district politics. They're not looking out for the folks in their district. And then, of course, that begs the question, who then are they looking out for? And so, look, I get it. I've got an incredible pharmaceutical company in my own district, but here's the thing. I'm going to vote for the people. And that's what I want and would urge my colleagues to do who are trying to block, again, this president's broadly popular economic agenda. I do believe that we will unify together as Democrats. It's a shame that so much of this drama has been played out in the public square, so to speak. But I do believe, as with the American Rescue Plan and as with other things, that we will rally around an agenda that allows us to meet this moment. We're talking about the expansion of Medicare. We're talking about universal child care. We're talking about climate action to prevent another Hurricane Ida from devastating communities throughout America. This is what we can do under unified control of the federal government. And this is what Democrats, I would submit, will do in the coming days.
And it's what y'all ran on. I will note for our audience that the Poor People's Campaign, Bishop Barber, have requested a meeting with the White House. They want to go straight to the top and talk to the White House about this, and I can just imagine what they're going to say. But Mondaire Jones, Congressman, thank you for fighting the good fight. Appreciate you being here this evening.
Thank you.
You can come back anytime. Thank you very much. Still ahead, the new but strengthening alliance between the far right and anti-vaccine fanatics poses a growing threat, not only to the medical professionals literally facing death threats, but to anyone trying to seek care at hospitals that are packed with unvaccinated COVID patients. More on that next. Stay with us.